You
There we go.
focus on content.
Start.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, good.
Can you see my screen? Okay.
Yes. You see it, guys? Yeah. And I'll just say that if some of you want to, if it's a bit far away, log in on your laptops and you'll be able to follow it that way because it's up in Teams. Okay. This HDMI keeps on getting a bit dislodged on me.
Not a problem.
There we go. Right, I'll not touch my desk anymore because I keep knocking it off. Okay.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. I've got a very, very brief PowerPoint slide deck just to go through, just to sort of position cost management. It's part of my standard deck, so I'll jump through a few that are more sort of sales focused. Sorry, I've just clicked the wrong button there. Hang on, here we go. We'll jump through. Okay, so very, very briefly about myself. I'm the UK Cloud Services Manager for a company called Symmetry, and I also specialise in the cost management functionality within Autodesk Construction Cloud. Tiny bit about my background. Been around for quite a long time, working in cost management to start, and I've worked through manufacturing and IT systems and data management, design, software, etc., etc. I won't bore you with any more of that. I'm going to jump through this. This is more of a salesy one. I'll start with this bit. So, what we gain from cost management are really these four key areas. First of all, centralization of all of the cost related data that we gather with any project. It integrates with all the other parts of Autodesk Construction Cloud within Autodesk Build. It integrates with third parties as well, which you're not really interested in. The reason that we always start with this is that often you'll have multiple different spreadsheets that you're using for different parts of the cost management function. And the aim of this is really just to centralize all of that. And it adds some automation. So reports on the status, the cost commercial status of a project, but not something you have to manually put together. They're all generated from within the system. Everything's live, everything's real time. And the figures, if you like, if you look at them as a series of incredibly interlinked spreadsheets, all the figures just populate the correct areas automatically. You're not copying and pasting different figures, and that causes all sorts of potential issues. So that's really sort of the basis of it. But what it also adds is insights into the commercial situation, not just now, but in the future. So as you start adding in cost variations, change orders, we can link that into project program items so that we can then start to forecast out 3, 6, 12 months into the future to see what the commercial position of the project's going to be at those points. For me, that's the real benefit of cost management. Everything else is kind of historic. Reporting on costs is by its very nature historic. This has happened, this is how much it cost. But the real power is better to look forward and to see how that current situation and how the constant variations that occur throughout a project, how they impact the position looking forwards. Again, this is a bit of a salesy pitch one, so I'll jump through that one. This is really just showing where cost management sits within Autodesk Construction Cloud, within Autodesk Build specifically, and the functions that we can manage within that module, from contract creation and administration, full management of change orders, variations, payment applications, downstream, upstream payment applications, and our forecasting. And it all sits within this single project. So this is a little bit more of a graphic representation of everything that cost management does. We start in this bottom section. We start obviously with our budget. This is what we will have priced from various bills of quantities, and this is what we'll be charging for completion of the project. This is what we hope to get paid. We've then got our contracts. This is where we're going to procure those services. Those services might be internal work, subcontract work. They might be fees and consulting fees and things like that. And then we have our payment application. So how people actually claim money from us, and how we claim money from the end client. They all feed into our actuals. The actuals then feed into our forecasting module, which is linked, as I said, to our project program. And that's how, again, we start to look out into the future. Top section is all around change management. We can manage it from the very first moment that a change is triggered. That might be it might be a problem at the design stages. There's missing documentation, or a specification is wrong, or some of the design itself is wrong, and that can have obviously a commercial impact. And we gather all of that information from within Build. So if you're using Build to manage issues and RFIs and architectural site instructions, all those elements can lead into what we call a potential change order. If you're looking, if you're working maybe with sort of NEC4 contract terms, then you're looking at sort of calling that an advanced warning. It's the place where we gather all of the information that's come in from those issues and RFIs, even subcontract changes. All of those trigger the pricing of that change, and also whether we will actually proceed with that. A lot of changes will start, but they won't be processed. They might be deemed to be too expensive, so we won't go ahead with that. But we manage all of that process of pricing after the initial instigation of the potential change. So we go through all of that process. When we're looking at changes, we're looking at changes that are either just related to cost, so there's something that perhaps we've made a mistake on when we priced up the job and when we tendered for the job, and we will have to either draw down from our contingency or just swallow the cost of that. But there might also be additional work that the clients asked for, or additional works that have been found through ground investigations, for example. And we require extra budget. There's something that what we call out of scope, and so we can manage all of that as well. So we can request through the system additional budget for that particular work, and then the cost of that, and we follow all the way through to what we call an owner change order. Would be a contract variation document that effectively grants us extra money, extra budget to complete that work. And then we can raise, for any subcontract areas of that work, we can raise what we call a supply change order, subcontract change order, contract variation downstream. So all of that we manage within the cost management system. It's incredibly customizable. That can make it a little bit complicated to set up. The demonstration that I've got is essentially all out of the box. So it's all out of the box terminology, and it uses all the standard terms, and all of the standard change order types, so that we can categorize the nature of those changes. But all of those can be configured. I'll just quickly jump through those. Integrations, we can integrate within Autodesk Build. So from documents that are stored in the system, to meeting minutes, to photographs that are taken, RFI submittals, all of these again feed into the cost management system. And that's it for the PowerPoint. So we'll jump into cost management. This is my demonstration project. When you come in, I'm obviously not going to go through the settings. These are all sort of as any part of training, you'll go through and look at these yourselves. But we've got our 5 main sections within cost management. First one is the home screen. And the home screen is a series of dashboards or cards, as we term them within Autodesk Construction Cloud. And they show you, a high level view of the project as it is at the moment. As I said before, this is live real time data. So I can see my calendar, I can see where date related items occur. So in here, I've got some requests for quotes. That's an RFQ. I've got some of those that are due. So I'm due a response for those. I've asked for a quote on those. I've got payments due. I can look forwards and see any other time related items. I can also see any workflows that are in there. So these workflows will relate to how do we approve contract submission? How do we approve change order requests, CORs? This is where we're asking for additional money from the supplier. And supplier change orders, these are going through a process. So we'll raise them. They'll have to go through a particular workflow to say, yes, we're happy with that, with all the relevant documentation that we need. All the costs are correct, the budget's correct. We can issue that contract variation. So you see all of that. So you it's kind of like your to-do list as you come into the platform. There's more information that I won't spend too much time on. I really want to jump in and sort of show you the workings of the platform. But there's information around about the budget, the cost trend, and you can see money coming in, everything in green, money going out, everything in purple. So you get this high level look at where the project is at the moment. You also get then some trackers. So our response due tracker. So we can see from various different sections, any contracts and payment applications, any that are overdue, due in the next 7 days, due after 7 days. So we can see the future workload, things that we need to do and ensure that we get completed in a timely fashion. And then we can look at our change order status. So this is particularly useful because it gives you a summary of RFQs, requests for quote. So this is where we're going through the pricing stage. So we can see what the current situation is in terms of where those changes are within the system. We can look at change order requests. This is where we have requested money from the client, and we can see that we've got 87,500 in review, 76,000 has been approved, 10,000 has been rejected. And we can jump through all of these so that we can get an understanding of the change orders within the particular project. And we get a few stats that just get built up based on percentage of values and the average approval time. These start out blank, they'll just populate and work out as you progress through the project. Okay, so if we look then at the main budget screen, so this, apart from the home screen, this is your kind of go-to page for everything that relates to this project. You'll see that we've got some general information over here. So we've got budget name, budget code, the cost type. So this is really just categorizing, is it a subcontract work? Is it internal work? Does it relate to fees, insurances, things like that? Supplier contracts, where those have been set up and issued. We'll see then our budget. So this is, remember, this is the money coming in. So this is what we're getting paid. So this is what our original budget, this is what we went to tender with. And then we see and we track all of the changes. And as I said, these figures are populated based on our day-to-day work of managing the changes. We're not manually entering these figures in. They will just appear in the right column against the right contract. These are pending changes, so they're working through a process. These are approved changes, so these have gone through the workflow, and they now impact our revised budget. And then we can see our projected budget that's built up out of all of these potential changes, all these that are pending approval, or, as I said before, possible rejection. But if they go ahead, this is what our projected budget's going to look like. If we just move across, we've got our cost side. So this is how we procured those services. These are our internal costs, and we'll have added on our markup when we obviously go out and tender for the job. So this was our original commitment. So this is when the contracts were first issued and first approved. And then again, we see all of our changes as they work through the system. As we identify an initial change order, a potential change order, they hit our reserves. So they immediately hit the projected cost. And then we see as they work through the process. Anything that's been that's undergoing work at the moment, pricing work, pending change orders, all of our approved change orders. So we get this full set of information. Then we've got our forecasts. Forecast adjustments are a particular sort of anomaly, I suppose, to all of this, in that these are entered directly into this budget page. They're primarily used even before you've maybe got a potential change order, and we just know that something's coming up. Maybe there's some supply issues, and we suspect that we're going to have to put something in. We've got no potential change order at the moment, but we are going to make that forecast adjustment. That would then typically be neutralized once you've got a potential change order, because now we're going through a formal process of pricing up those changes. And we'll see our forecast to final cost figures as well. As you hover over any of these, you will see the system will show you how those figures are being calculated. So you can see the different columns from where they come, so that you're always understanding, what's that figure actually showing me. And then we can see all of our variances. So I've added in a couple of extras here. So these are my planned margins. So this is what I expected to make on this project when I first started it. This is my planned margin, and these are the calculated percentages. And then I've got my actual variance. What's the actual position? And how's that changed from the planned margin? Am I above? Am I behind? And the percentage complete is just actual cost divided by forecast final cost, and that gives me a percentage complete, and that's based on those payment applications that we would make. We can determine on these pages any organization, any columns that we want to include. You can see I've got quite a few columns turned off. There are a lot of potential columns in here that you can just turn on and off. They can be locked so that they always appear, a bit like in Excel. If you freeze a pane, it'll freeze those columns. Very similar thing here. So we can change all of those. If I want to see more detail of any of these, I can simply select that item, click on anything blue, and that will show you this detail flyout. And it shows me an abundance of details about this particular line item, including references to any other item within this particular project, files and assets and photos, RFIs, anything that can have an impact on that or add to the documentation. Here I've got this linked to a particular schedule activity, so I can see start and end days. But all of that information is always available. And as you swap between these different budget line items, the panel stays open, you can see the detail. Of particular interest is the budget code. This is the key to everything. They can be very simple, they can be far more complicated, like this one. And we break down this individual code into different segments: project, subjob, a classification system. You can kind of think of this as a who, what, when, where, how kind of scenario. You know, what's the cost? What does it relate to? Who's it going to? What type of cost? When is it happening? What phase is it happening in? When we break those down, what that enables us to do is to either filter based on all of these different budget code segments. So I might filter based on internal. So those are my internal costs. I might want to look at what fees am I paying. So I can set up all of these different filters. I can also just group items. So if I want to group items based on, say, cost type. So now I've grouped everything based on that segment of that code. So I can see what I'm paying in fees, general conditions, internal costs, and subcon costs. We can expand all of these out so you can see all of the detail. And you can save these views. So you've got an option here to save the current view. So I've got my default view. I've got one set up for my classification. So I'm using the CSI codes, but you might use Uniclass codes, SRM codes, NRM codes, whatever classification system you want. You can even make up your own. And that will always break that down into those different categories, and you can just expand, or you can expand all of them. You can collapse to a certain level, so you always see all of the detail, and all of these are saved within the system. So you can just jump in here, excuse me, and set these views up. I've got another one based on cost type here. We've seen that. These are just grouped items. I might have a look at contract status. So this is when I'm going through the procurement route. At the start of the project, I may not have officially procured all the services. I may have an idea who's going to do the architectural work, who's going to do the mechanical, the electrical installation. Those contracts might not have been officially signed or sent out yet. So I can see where I am in that process. So everything's been submitted, things that are currently in review. So fees are currently in review. Okay, so we're obviously going through some sort of review process on these. So you can have a look at those. And I've put together a little project overview screen. So I've taken away a lot of the different columns here. I don't want all of the detail. All I want to see is, what does my budget look like? What does my cost look like? And what are my margins? So I've created that, and I've grouped it based on the CSI codes as well, so that I can see that. At any point in basically any of these screens that we're going to look at over the next sort of 40 minutes or so, you've got this lovely export option. It's kind of like an instant report. This is what I was talking about earlier about not having to build up different reports. They're all within the system. So I can take this view and I can say, yes, I want to drop this either to PDF or Excel. I can even save it directly into my project. So I can go and pick a location and save that file, that file automatically into the filing system. Or I can simply download it and email it. Main contract is effectively your main contract with the client. I have just one in here for simplicity, but this might be broken out into different stages of the project. So you might have a contract for the design stage, and then maybe just one for the construction phase. You might have conceptual design, detailed design, pre-construction, post-construction, and that allows you to sort of break that whole tender down into the various stages. And that then helps with your payment applications. Payment applications are, these are the budget payment applications. So this is money that we're claiming from the client. They're all built around a schedule. I've got my master schedule here. I have simply taken the start date of the project, the end date of the project, and I have divided them into months. But you can modify these, you can delete them, you can add new periods. So you can set that up, and this forms a master schedule for the entire project if you want to. So we can take this and we can then use this to define the payment schedules for any of our subcontractors that are working for us as well. And then we're able to build our payment request. So this is our work completed in this period. We can see what's in the previous period, materials stored. We can enter in either in percentages or quantities. So the system is very flexible in terms of that. You can even just put in an amount that you're claiming. These will go through a workflow. So this one's currently in review. It's been submitted. It's now awaiting a review, and then hopefully it will move through and then be approved. So we see all of that information in there. We can also view all of the associated costs. So obviously we're going to be claiming money from our client. We're also going to have subcontractors and consultants claiming money from us, either through measured work or through invoices. This is where our expense comes in. Our expenses are really for everything that's not a measured work, not a measured item. So I've got some cost payment applications that are in progress at the moment. These have been approved, and I've got some expenses that I have paid. Now, what the system will allow you to do is to aggregate the costs based on these values. So I can say I want to pick up the percentages. So this equates to 10%, this equates to 29%, etc., etc. I can aggregate my costs. It's a great way of just starting to build that payment application. You're going to get money that you've got to pay out. You want reimbursing for that. And so you can add all of that information in there. Okay, that's the budget side of things. The cost side of things, when you look at these columns, they are remarkably similar. We are effectively looking at the same information here. So we've got the same sets of columns in here in terms of money we've got coming in, money we've got going out, all of our forecasts and variances. But these are organized around the contract that we have raised for that particular part of the work. So if I just select one, we can see this is the budget code that relates to this contract. So we add those in. We've got what type of contract is this? Consultant, internal purchase order. These can all be customized as well. We can see all of our supply details. We got all the details about the associated budget. If we just expand that out a little bit, we can see the full schedule of values. This allows you to add additional detail to this. So I can add sub-items, I can import sub-items. This will often be the case. You've got one budget line item for site management staff, but when you're pricing for that, when you're doing the procurement, you might have that broken down into a number of sub-items to build up to this overall cost, and we can facilitate that as well. We can apply tax to these. These are all configured in the system. You can apply those as necessary. We can generate all of our documents in here as well. These are all standard templates that are built into the system, and probably for yourselves, you wouldn't need to particularly customize these. These would work as an example. If I just select one, that's going to go into Docs, and it's going to open up. This is a Word template, but we can do Excel as well, and it simply reads from the information that we have in the system, and it builds up effectively our supplier contract. So we generate all of those from within the system. We can add additional documents in there, any other contract exhibits that you need to add in, health and safety work, an overall project program, a list of documents required, etc., etc. All of those things can be added in. All of the dates when it's been awarded, any responses due, these can all be triggered either manually or through the system as well as you create and as you revise them. We'll see our billing periods. So this is where we can bring in the billing periods from the master schedule if we want, so we don't have to go and recreate all of these. And what you'll see is any payment applications that relate to those. So if I find, there we go. So this one, I can see all of the amounts of the payment applications that have come in, what state they're at. All of that information built in. We can obviously group these in exactly the same way as we can with the budget screens. So different types of contracts. We might pick it up by subcontract type. I've added in an extra value here for domestic named and nominated contractors that we can add in. I could pick it up by supplier. So where am I actually procuring all of these services from? So you can go and have a look at each of those. In this particular case, I've got a couple of budget line items. So I've established a budget for mechanical services, electrical services, but I'm actually procuring that through one supplier. So obviously the system facilitates that as well. Then we have our cost payment applications. So this is where our subcontractors, excuse me, are presenting us with their bill for the prescribed billing period. They come in and they work through a pre-subscribed workflow. A lot of these can be customized. You probably wouldn't want to go through that process. for your particular work that you're going to do, these would suffice, but they can all be customized to suit particular requirements. If I just take a look at the detail here, so we've got this little flyout, we can see the details of that individual payment application, and I'll just expand all of those down. So payment applications are built, as I said, around those payment schedules that have been agreed in advance, and we select the payment application period and we create that payment. That then populates this payment screen with all the items that relate to this contract. So we don't have to do any of this manually. That was maybe obvious, but it loads in all of those schedule of values, and we see what we've priced that based upon. So all of the quantities, we can see from previous applications what the situation is. As we scroll across, we then see this period. So this period will often be broken down into the claimed work. So this is what the subcontractor is saying they have completed. They've gone out and done their site measure. We might then, our QSs might go out and they might do their own site measure. And they may well come back and say, actually, we don't think you've done this quantity. We reckon you've done that quantity. That's a very explicit value, but we can add all of those in. So this is what we're effectively saying. This is what we're willing to pay you. Usual trick is that materials come on site and they'll be claimed as work, and we might go out and measure it and say, well, okay, well, we're not paying you on that because you're just storing it on site. If you've got a canny QS, they might go out and say, we're actually going to charge you storage costs for that because we've got to take care of it. So you've got that setup, and that enables us to go through each line item effectively and approve or reject certain items as part of that payment request. That will obviously work through the system. We've got all of our recoupment of if we've made any payments on account, we can do that. Some of those contracts you will need to make an upfront payment. We can do those as part of the payment application, and then we can work and effectively recoup that advance payment as we go through. So you see all of that information in there as well, and then obviously work remaining, any retentions. So I've applied some defaults. These are often applied 5% on materials, 10% on work. Just give me a bit of protection against anything that perhaps needs rework or hasn't been done to the required standard. And then obviously we can manage the release of that retention as well. So that's our cost payment application. Expenses are for everything else. Everything's not billable. Not measurable. So I've got printing fees. So I've received an invoice. I've created this. These can also be imported en masse. If you've got a list of invoices, you can bring those in. We've got the attachment here, so I can see what that is. We'll assign that to a particular contract. We have to do that in order to be able to track this. So if we look at the detail, we can see that aligns to this particular budget item. So we'll align that in, and then again, we've got this nice simple workflow of either approve, reject, or request a revision. Can you please have a look at that again? We're not willing to make that payment. A lot of these will be probably conversations that you would have in a typical situation, and then you've got a revised invoice, and then you can push that through and approve it. And again, the system tracks all of these dates. When is the payment due? I'm massively overdue on this. This would never be allowed, but we track all of that. When did we receive it? When is the payment due? Also, when is it paid? And we start to see, and you'll see this throughout the system as well, our forecast distribution. This is essentially is in what period do we expect this to impact? And that's particularly important when we look at our change orders. So changes, potential change order, request for quote from a subcontractor, change order request, we're requesting money from the client. Owner change order, this is where the owner is officially revising our contract and awarding us that extra money. And then the supplier change order, subcontract change order, is where we're varying the contract of our suppliers. Again, all documents that relate to these can be generated from within standard templates from within the system as well. So we add a potential change order. I've got one particular example in here, my entrance expansion. It's been deemed as out of scope. In other words, it's going to cost me extra money and I expect to get paid for it. And then we assign all of the different areas of work that are impacted by that. This is how we start to price this up. What's it going to cost? What money do we need in order to carry out, in this case, this entrance expansion? So those are all just added in. So we add in our different budget line items. So you can search in here, you can find all the different ones that relate to this particular change order, and that will then populate them down here. You can then also select the contract if it's been awarded to a contract. You may have multiple contracts in some of these. Often a budget line item will be split into multiple contracts. And in that case, we can pick which contract this is going to be related to. And we start to estimate the values. And this is how the system populates our budget and cost screens. So if you put an estimated value in, that's what effectively, when we open this, that's what impacts our reserves. So we've estimated these values. We've not had any quotes yet, but we estimate the values to be, in this case, 156,500. That hits our budget screen ready, so we know what the potential impact is. This is where we can start looking out into the future. You know, when's that going to take place? So we can start looking at the impact of that. And then we'll go through various proposals. So this is what we've been proposed. So we've had quotes back from subcontractors, suppliers, and those values will be populated there. They might be the same value, they might be different. They're likely to be different. Submitted. So this is where we go out and we say, okay, we want extra money. So we're going to submit these in our change order request to say, this is what we're claiming additional money. And then the approved is what comes back from the owner change order, from the owner saying, yeah, okay, I've looked at all of that. I'm happy with that. We're happy to proceed with that. We will commit to that contract variation. And then we can commit that as well. So we track these all the way through the various stages. So this relates to both budget and cost. So I've got a budget section here where I can generate change order request, owner change order. If I look at cost, I can generate RFQs. This is telling me RFQ has already been created from this. Contract is already generated and awarded. So the final thing would be to create a supplier change order. First of all, we would create a change order request and then hopefully get an owner change order. Based on that, we can then vary the contract and issue the supplier change order. That's the process of how things go through the system. And we can get to those from here as well, not just from the flyout panel. We've got this little more menu. So you've got your budget change, cost change. You see the same information in here. So you will go through a process of adding in these. And if I just look at the entrance expansion, these might relate, and they do, in fact, in this case, they relate to an RFI that was raised within build. So I can select that and I can go and look at that. So this is another part of build, same project, but this is the RFI that was raised regarding this potential issue. Excuse me. We can see that it started with an issue. It was raised up then to an RFI. We have various sheets attached to it as backup information. And even from here, then we can see that in this case, a PCO was raised directly from here, and we can then go through the pricing process. And we can see what's happening with that as well. We can see where the RFQs are going. We can see when there's supply change orders. So from wherever we look, we can get to all of this information. That's the idea of having all this information in one place. It makes it really easy for us to understand exactly what's happening. You're not scrabbling around looking for documentations. You know, when was that email sent? Did we get a response? Have we got all the documents that we need in order to be certain that we're pricing this right and we're issuing the contract in the correct way? So those all work through the process. RFQs. What are we waiting on? Change order request. Now, what you'll find in a lot of situations, and this is just particular to the way a lot of clients like to work. So we could have hundreds of potential changes. What typically will happen is that a client will say, don't send me a change order request for every single PCO, because you just end up going around a never-ending loop. Everything gets stuck in an approval workflow. So what will often happen is you'll take a number of PCOs, a number of potential changes, and from those you will create a single change order request. So you pick a number of these, and it may be on a month-by-month basis. You pick these up, right? These have gone through. Maybe we've got pricing. We are going to bundle all these together into a single change order request. Those can then go through another approval process. This one's currently in review. This one has been outrightly rejected. They'll be processed and approved. Once those get approval, we can then generate from here the supplier change order. And the owner change order is our contract variation. So this is where additional hoardings and signage, and this is effectively my contract variation generated from within the system. I have elected, and I will show you very, very quickly because I think this is useful. I've elected, and this is one of the settings that you go into at the start of the project, to store all of my documents inside of Docs in a particular folder, because I like to be able to just go to one place in that folder structure and see all of my contract documents, everything that relates to the commercial aspects of the project. So we've got all those, our supplier change orders, and again, you know, we can generate the change order from here, the documentation from within here. And cost items is just really, it's a list of every single item that is currently, every single budget item that is currently impacted by change and the values of those. And again, you can group, you can filter. Group by cost status. These have been accepted, these have been rejected, these are under revision, these have yet to be submitted. You can really slice and dice this in any way that you deem suitable. Okay, and the final piece, and realistically, the most important thing that you are really ever going to look at in these, certainly as you move up the chain of command, let's say, you know, higher up, people want to know what's the current situation and what's it going to look like in 6 months. I don't care about all of the intimate detail. That's down to you as a cost manager to manage. What I want to know is what's the position now, what's it going to be in 3-6 months time. And so what we do here is we build up our project program. We have a couple of ways of doing this. We can either just create some tasks in here. That may suit yourselves in this, but you may have, if I jump into build, you may have loaded your project program, as in fact I have here. So this is my project program. You can import schedules from, as you can see, Microsoft Project, Primavera, or Asta Power Projects. That is my, when it loads, there you go. That is my project program. Okay, it shows everything in there. What I can then do, if we come back into cost management, into our forecast. So what we then do is we bring that in from build. So we bring in our project program. We would then, at a particular level, map these items. We can map at this level. We might want to map at this level. These might be a bit too detailed in the project program. They might not relate to individual budget line items, but you'll find one, you know, probably that does. And then we map these to our individual budgets. So I've got my office building edition. Okay, so that's that top level. I've just picked that up, and what that gives the system is a start date and an end date, so that we can then see how we're doing, planned and actual costs. But the absolutely most important part is our cash flow. Let's turn on the charts. Always like a good chart, so we can see where we're at. So in here we've got revised budget, work complete, actual cost, and forecast of final. This is what we call our forecast distribution. And these are triggered by that act of mapping our budget line item to the scheduled item. We get a start date, we get an end date. We can then build out that distribution. If we take a look at our forecast to final cost, let's go and look at the detail of that. Okay, so these are all of those individual budget line items with the forecast total. When we build these, what the system does, there we go. When we build a distribution, so if I just clear that distribution for a moment. Yes, clear. There we go. Took a couple of seconds. That's it. There we go. So unallocated. There's my risk contingency. When I distribute this, the system reads that start and end date from the scheduled task. We can then pick up the front loaded typical, which is like the typical sort of bell curve, starts light, builds up, tails off at the end, or rear loaded or linear. You select that, and we can do this multiple times in one go. So we can do it en masse. You can pick up multiple line items and run your distribution. That then distributes all of that money across all of the different periods. So you can see I've got different tasks starting at different points in time. So at any point, I know that's what the forecast final cost is at that point in time. We have also occasionally these undistributed funds. So these will be generated through change orders. So for example, if we look at the detail of the envelope package, we have some undistributed changes and adjustments. So I can add those into the distribution item. Okay, and these sit in my forecast adjustment and in reserves. So these are at the very early stages of being assessed for their impact. What you can then do is select to distribute this. So you can either use the distribution tool and it will distribute across these, or if you know that the expenditure is going to occur at that point in time, you can put that value in. So you go in and you set this up. That's where all of these distribution periods. When you look at a change order, there's a section for the distribution period. That allows it to appear in these panels correctly. It also then appears when you're doing payment requests. If you've got change orders, you'll see a separate item with these are the change orders that relate to this payment request. So we know when we're actually carrying those works out. And that gives us an idea. So we'll come in here and we'll say this is what we expect it to happen. So then the actual costs feed in here as well. And that all feeds into that overall cash flow position. And again, export, we can export all of those, store them in the system as well. Very, very quickly, 5 minutes left. So I want to show you this just simply because I like to have this. So we've got all of our documents, everything that relates to the commercial aspect of the project, all within cost management, within budget, within contracts, within change orders, within payment requests, change order requests, request for change, request for quote. All of this documentation is within cost, and that's great because we can look at any particular contract and we can see all the detail. However, sometimes it's nice to be able to just go into document management, into the files, and work through all of my documentation. This can often be easier. You allow people access to come in and have a look at those without actually giving them access to cost management. So I've set that up. I would personally recommend that you do this. I've created myself a contract management folder in Docs, and this is where I'm this is where I'm saving any documents that I create. What that means when I look at files, here's my contract management. So I see all the different companies. I've also included in here my contract exhibits. So these are all standard stuff that I'm going to add to any contract that I send out. Health and safety program, document list, project schedule. The list is almost endless. But then for any single supplier, I can see everything that relates to that. So this relates to this request for quote, number 5, entrance expansion. These are the documents that were sent out. This is a PDF version of that that's generated automatically. If I look at one of these, so Excitic 360, I've got cost payment applications. So I can see all of those. I've got contract variations. So additional rainwater pipes, I can see all of that. That's my final bit on that. I like to keep that because I think it's a nice way of being able to work through everything that relates to that particular supplier, including this is the expense, printing, and that's the invoice that they sent us. So I'm recording absolutely everything within here. And that is cost management. There's only 2 minutes left, but if there are any questions or comments, please feel free.
Thanks, Johnathan. That seemed quite comprehensive. Thank you very much. I'm glad we got that recorded.
Yes, there is quite a lot to go through.
Yeah, I'm going to throw it out to the floor to see if there's any questions before. I've got some written down here anyway, but anybody any questions? Did it make sense what you're looking at? Yeah. So, yes. Okay. I don't, can you hear the students there, Johnathan?
I didn't quite, no, I didn't hear it clearly enough.
Okay, so what some of them were saying is that yeah, they could follow what you were doing, and now they've got recording, they'll be able to follow the recording and implement it.
Excellent.
Okay. So
actually,
any other questions?
I was going to say one very quick thing, just as a quick guide. The start point to this is going into edit mode and importing your budget item. You can download a template, you fill in all the values, your budget codes, and then you basically import them into the system.
That's a question I had actually.
Yeah,
Oh,
I mean, you can,
that was on my.
yeah, you can add them manually, and you might do that occasionally. But if you import them, you get a spreadsheet, and you go and set all those in. The thing to look at when you set it up is this budget code format. This is where I build out the different segments. And again, this doesn't have to be, as complicated as this. But you might want to have, things like maybe a cost type and a classification. You can add these in. You can just add them manually and put a classification that's just going to work for yourselves. I've got like the full CSI coding structure in here. So, this makes it a bit complicated adding in budget figures because you got to add those in. But this is your bit. So set up your budget code. Don't overcomplicate it. But it is nice to be able to have things like cost type and some sort of classification system. That's always nice and useful. And then when you've got
It's
that,
NRM2 you use.
yeah,
What
you can.
classification system do you use? ARM4. Yeah, ARM4 is what the guys use here.
Yeah, so you can put those in. If we go into the budget code, what we call them are master lists. And again, if you go to import, you can download a template. So you fill that template in to whatever level of detail you want to. It might not be the full level of detail for the structure, but you might just go to level 1 and level 2 maybe. Depends on how complex you're building up in your during your work during the course. But again, you download a template, you import that in, and it allows the system to look up the code and retrieve these values.
Okay. So what the class have done, they've at the very start there, because they use Qubit mainly. They've together made a bill on Qubit. Can they import that into cost management?
As long as it's in the right format. As long as it's in the right format, you might need to tweak it. So what you would do is come into edit mode, go to import and download the template.
Okay.
The template is quite simple. There's you've got a section for the budget code, a description of the item, quantity, the unit, is it square meters, is it cubic meters, is it each, whatever it is, and then you put in the unit cost. And then you just do a quick sum at the end. So it's reasonably straightforward. But as long as you've got that we typically have to reformat things a little bit just to fit them in into this code. But yeah, download the template first and you see what format it's got to be in.
Perfect. Thanks. Any questions? No? Yeah, I think that's what you were saying. They're asking, can you import it from Excel? So what you're saying is to download the template and then maybe just copy from one Excel to the other and then use the template to upload.
Yeah, all the master lists for the coding, your budgets. You can even import a whole list of contracts. So if you've got a list of contracts, that's basically a number and a contract name. Those are all driven by spreadsheet. You can just import them and you can download templates for each one so you know the format that it needs to be in.
Okay. Cool. I just had something there as you're going through, and it seemed quite interesting when you were going through some of the cost changes, and you could track right through from it being an issue to being raised as a possible change order, that whole tracking, right? Is that something that might get used for, tracking the golden thread?
Yeah, quite potentially. I mean, it certainly would be part of it. I mean, the golden thread is it's like a term for all of the information that relates to it. It has to be digital, it has to be traceable, it has to be trackable. You've got to be able to show why the work was done, how it was done, potentially even evidence that it has been done. So yeah, it certainly forms a part of that. That's also kind of one of the reasons that I set my documentation to sit within Docs. So this is under Settings, General tab, Documents and Attachments.
Yes.
Because that's a nice way. That builds like a thread of information for each contractor, each supplier. You've got all of the information that you've generated in the system all in one place.
Okay, very good. Okay, I mean, I know you're conscious to get going there as well. I got a few other bits here, but it's grand. It's we'll talk through them and the guys will explore it.
Yeah.
So last chance for a question. No. Okay, right. Look, I think because I know you need to get going as well. You were saying there you're on time, but Jonathan, that was
Awesome.
fantastic.
Pleasure.
Really
Always a
was,
pleasure. I'll talk all day about
and
cost management.
the the guys have got the recordings there, and it's great we've got this done earlier in the project now, in our project, because the intention there, what was great was seeing like the schedules linked into the cost plans and stuff. So we've got more time to work all these different aspects in. So
Yes, I think last time
thank you very much.
we were a bit late in the year for it, really, weren't we?
Yeah, yeah. So that was good. So look, thank you, and class, we've got our. No, Johnathan, it's really much appreciated because I'd have
My
no
pleasure.
chance going through that. Okay.
My pleasure at all. My pleasure. Anytime.
Okay. I'll let you get going. And look, thanks very much, Jonathan.
Thanks, Gordon. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks a lot. Cheers. Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.